poll, and we are going to get started. We have a lot of great info to cover tonight. And just from a quick logistical standpoint too, we are slated to go 90 minutes. For those of you that can stay for all of it, fantastic. We wanted to make sure that there's some time at the end to answer some questions from anybody. And again, just a reminder, this will be recorded and we will send it to everybody. So if you've registered for tonight, you will receive that email tomorrow. So you can definitely access all of the information. Awesome. Shall we dive in?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Let's do it. So can everybody see the responses from the polls? Great, cool, awesome. Well, more where that came from. We'll share the results here just so everybody's curious. If you didn't get to see it, let's just recap it really quickly. So we got almost 60% teachers. I'm sure that represents a broad spectrum. And as Christina said, you know, we've certainly shared, we've kind of simplified some of these categories for tonight, but hopefully people identify with one or more of these. And really interesting, yeah, to see the why you are considering a pivot. So finding purpose, culture change, work-life balance, really interesting. I'm sure, especially after coming out of a crazy, I was gonna say 1 year, but we're in like year 3 of this now.
Yeah, we're in year 3 now.
Yeah, these are great. These are all, it's pretty even, I gotta say. And I think these are all really compelling reasons to be looking into the field of EdTech. So fantastic. All right, great. So we got a couple more fun polls for you guys, but with that, let's dive in. And welcome to folks that are just joining. So really excited to talk a lot about breaking into EdTech tonight. And for those of you that haven't had a chance to meet, my name is Ambika. I'm one of the co-founders of Zeit, and we are, Christina's my other co-founder, and we also have Jinjin, who is here, and our community manager, who's going to be joining us today. So a couple topics that we're going to cover tonight. So we've kind of broken this up into 4 sections, if you will. And we'll just dive in right here. Okay, cool. So 4 chapters, if you will. We try to make this as relatable to you all educators as we could. So number 1 is we're just going to give you a little bit of context about, you know, who we are, what we do as a company. And then we really want to focus on you all today and the opportunity at hand. And we're going to do that in a few ways. So number 2 is thinking about just like taking a look at the landscape of EdTech and trying to really understand why it is such a terrific opportunity for educators, we believe, and what we've seen. The third piece is going to be diving into what we believe are going to be some really helpful tools and inspirational tools to help you visualize the career paths ahead of you in EdTech, try them on, and also hopefully just be very tactical tools to help you start to articulate and position your experience. So one caveat we will say is we've been really touched by the outpouring of folks that were interested in this event. We normally do workshops that are a bit smaller and intimate, and our programs are designed that way. So this will be a little bit more presentation based, but we certainly are leaving you with a lot of tools tonight that we believe you'll be able to do and leverage on your own. Awesome. And then certainly want to make sure that there's time for questions, and we'll share a little bit about kind of how it ties back to, you know, ways that we could potentially help. Awesome. Great. Yeah, so we're at about 300 folks here. Okay, so this was really, really interesting information for us because as many of you signed up and told us what you were hoping to get out of tonight, these were the three compelling reasons and questions that you have on your mind. So what are my career path options? Based on these amazing roles that are represented here today in education, where can you go in the EdTech space? What are those roles called? And what do those roles actually do? As we know, job boards can be quite confusing. Sometimes job descriptions can be confusing. So trying to get a stronger handle of what these roles are really about. And then obviously a burning question is, how do you position yourself, right? How do you do the introspection to understand what those skills are you possess, and how do you articulate them in a way that is going to resonate with the hiring manager, that's going to resonate with the recruiter? So those are three of the topics that we're going to touch on tonight. And the reason why these are really kind of important questions, as we go to the next slide, is this is something that we have heard again and again and again. And this is actually the reason that Christina and I have started this company. So a little bit about us personally, just to kind of give you that context of our mission, is both Christina and I have had very nonlinear career paths. So high level myself, I have worked in 5 different industries, from finance to whatever it is I'm doing now, entrepreneurship. And I've never held the same job title. And I've really struggled with the same 3 questions that many of you spoke about tonight and brought you here tonight. Christina, I'll let you share a little bit about your own nonlinear path as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ambika. I echo that. I think for me, I started out in kind of the core graphic design industry and then moved into like design thinking and user research and product design and product strategy. And what I found was that like the titles were changing constantly. People didn't know what they meant. They changed industry to industry. And like even in consulting, like I had to talk to my clients about what I did. So the shared language just wasn't there, and it moved faster than I could keep up with. So I just felt like there has to be a better way of being able to understand, pitch, position, and get people to get on the same page of how to kind of develop and shape your career as the entire industry and world is changing around us at the same time.
So Christina and I were very fortunate. We're friends first and foremost, and now partners in crime. And we worked together at IDEO, which some of you may have heard of. We've actually done a lot of work in education as a company, and both of us have done some projects in the space of education at IDEO as well as a couple other companies that you see here. And so really what we focus on at Zeit is we help people identify and make career pivots. And we've done this for people in the education space, looking to move into EdTech, from retail, from financial services, from consulting, from not-for-profit. And it's really because we truly believe that there is an ability to articulate the power of your eclectic skills to move through your career. So we'll share a little bit more about ways that we do that, and you'll experience a bit of it today. But just, wanted to share, this is a real stat. This is one of the things that really got Christina and I out of bed and moving on building Zeit, which I'm sure many of you are part of some of these numbers, maybe even more towards the right. But there was a stat that said, in the future, as we look to the next even 5 to 10 years, people are going to have 20 plus jobs, right? So just think about that for 1 second, right? If you have 20 jobs, and these are different roles, these are different industries, some might be within the same, but it's that much change because of how the world is moving, whether it's technology, whether it's now the ability to work remote. So many of these are influencing how our careers are essentially being disrupted. So the fact that, yesterday we were thinking about having maybe 1 job to now the future where you're going to have a combination of so many different skills from 20 jobs, we really were motivated to build Zeit to help people understand how they can identify and traverse these career paths.
So just to kind of talk a little bit about where we were conceptually to where we're going now, is that these old ideas of career paths is that it's a ladder, right? The metaphor is a ladder. You work in one company and you work your way up to the top or work your way into some other position. I mean, that's changed a little bit, or maybe people are moving around, but that idea of that titles and there's gatekeepers involved and there's a fixed path doesn't exist anymore, right? Because we're much more than our titles. We're much more than the company that employs us. We're actually an assembly of skills and experiences that enable us to draw different pathways into new roles. So these ideas of transferable skills actually enable us bridges into new opportunities, whether whether you're a teacher and you're a really great facilitator or understand your kids' needs and really want to build products that actually meet those needs instead of just teach. So there's a lot of different pathways, whether you're an administrator and you're really into the operational efficiencies of running a school, but really want to translate that into business, there's a pathway for you using those transferable skills. We're going to go ahead and just throw up this. We'd love to hear how confident you are that you have transferable skills that will help pivot. This is awesome.
This is awesome. This is amazing.
More confident. So yeah, that's something we hear all the time too when we talk to people is, hey, like I have this role in mind, or I know I can do something else. I just don't know what it is, and I don't know the pathways that are available to me. So that's what we help do, is draw those bridges to those particular roles.
I love this so much too. Sorry to jump in for 1 second, because confidence is so critical to this process, as you and I know, Christina. So much about your ability to make these pivots is your conviction to do so, and the mindset to be able to do exactly that. So love to see that a lot of people have it here in spades. And if you don't, there's ways to get there.
I guarantee you have some skills that are transferable. Whether it's a close pivot or it's a stretch, you have them and you can get there. So just, this visual just shows you, there's a lot of opportunities that can be illuminated here. And as you pivot, that idea that like those skills and experiences enable you to shape your own path. Because we know we're going to be shaping our paths for a long time now, because we're going to be shifting jobs a lot. So whether it's you're a teacher today and maybe you're interested in project management and you get into project management, a close pivot to that is product management, and so on and so on. So it's really about, finding your purpose or being fulfilled. It's about trying to understand what is transferable, trying to understand why you're pivoting, and to kind of begin your journey here. This is kind of where we're headed, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. This is the future, right? That we see, given that stat, as you remember, people having 20 jobs with a career. This is what our careers are going to look like, right? They are going to be this zigzag amorphous piece. And sometimes we're not going to know where we want to go. So that is really one of the reasons why we want to shine a spotlight on how people can talk about that transferable lingo, as Xavier just dropped into the chat, is something that we're going to touch on today, because that's certainly one piece of it. Terrific. All right. So little bit of, just wanted to give you that context. And now, second half, we really want to focus on the opportunity at hand for all of you wonderful people. Love the confidence and energy that everyone's bringing tonight. So wanted to start just by touching on, why this is such an interesting opportunity for many of you, right? So from our vantage point, and I'm sure many of you feel this way, and feel free to react and build on this in the chat. But these are some of the kind of cultural attractors or reasons that we're seeing, reasons why a lot of educators are attracted to the EdTech space, right? So number one, this idea of a growth mindset, which educators are the ones that introduced us to this model, by the way, but you see it being adopted and almost stolen so much in the tech industry, because it's so brilliant and it's so right about how we approach the way we learn, right, throughout our lives. And you all have really introduced us to that. So And that's very much the mindset that is assumed in the space of EdTech, as well as just the way that we work, right? And I think you all have probably, if you didn't do it before, you probably did it in these last few years through the pandemic, have found yourself having to develop more digital skills, be more agile and experimental, work more cross-functionally with people that you didn't know before, and really kind of have this sense of agency and buck some of the norms of these like traditional structures around education. So these are some of the reasons that we're seeing this kind of great migration or the great resignation into the EdTech space. The other reason, which, you know, again, this list could go on and on and on, but it's why we need all of you to shape EdTech. So Christina and I are, we are masters in helping people make career transitions and make career pivots. So we're certainly not masters in education. And from our vantage point, we just see, given the trends that are going on in tech and EdTech, how much we need great educators to step into these roles and
Absolutely.
bring things, yes, like your subject matter expertise, your ability to experiment in really like unconventional ways that
Understand what works.
Exactly. You just have great instincts. Your natural motivators and cheerleaders. Again, this is just a snapshot of the many reasons. And if you have additional ones, we'd always like to build this list. But these are just some of the reasons why, you know, when you think about your skills, we think that it's really critical to make this move.
And also feel free to drop in the chat any other things you think that reasons why educators would be great for EdTech and what you believe you guys can bring. All right.
Awesome.
So just to give like a
very I love it.
broad.
Sorry. Oh, we had some quick ones there. Empathy, team player, communication skills, critical thinkers, grit. Oh, I love it. Collaborators. Awesome ones. And this is great. I love people that are connecting too. Sorry to interrupt you, Christina. I was just going to say that we will absolutely find ways to bring this community together too, through happy hour events and other things. So that's another reason, but please continue to connect. Creative minds, love it. Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, thanks. So we just wanted to give a broad, like, what is the EdTech landscape? This huge, ever evolving, ever changing, businesses joining all the time, getting a bunch of funding. What are kind of the 4 big categories that some of these businesses fall into? The first here is what everyone's kind of most familiar with, right? That's online learning. So whether it's, you know, with Khan Academy or it's Masterclass Today, it's all about increasing access to learning and knowledge. And this stems from everything from traditional education to STEM, to language, to learning about technology. That's all there. And you guys are experts, subject matter experts, absolutely in this area. And you have so much to bring to it. The second one is tools powering education. And that really has to do with all the different tools we use to actually power, gear up, measure, operate education. So this is learning management systems, this is online program management, this is classroom analytics, et cetera. So there's a whole slew of different tools that I'm sure you guys all use and know very intimately, maybe too intimately, what they look like, that are ready to go. And then the third area is around emerging tools and subjects. So this is that looking at how can we rethink the future of learning? Is there new technology that we can use? Is there new approaches, whether it's wellness or social, emotional, and coaching? So there's so much opportunity here. And I think this is a great space for educators to say, hey, I have a bunch of ideas around how to rethink education and learning. I'd love to either start my own business or join a business that's attractive to me. And the last one here is just around training, credentialing, and sales. And that has more to do with upskilling current employees. So whether someone works at Costco and wants to help them get an associate's degree like Guild, or you're at Slack and you're trying to educate consumers on how to use their products, there's a whole category of companies that need educators to help them.
One quick note too on, we got some awesome poll results in here, but this last category you touched on, Christina, I think is also an important one for, as we think about that long-term career. I know a lot of people here are, some people are actually thinking about breaking out of just into tech, not even ed tech. But training, the training, credentialing, and sales space, I mean, we're seeing this across every type of company today, right? This idea of education and learning. So it's also a really good vector for people who maybe want to go from ed tech to another industry altogether, but leverage some of those tech skills. So I think that's a spike that we're going to see growing a lot. Interesting to see these results here. What do you think, Christina? I mean, there's a big spike here around tools for powering education. I'm just curious as to why people, what gets people excited about that?
Yeah. What are some areas that are exciting to you all?
Over some of these other ones.
Yeah, and then
especially
online emerging tools, all the other categories are about even.
Teresa, yeah. Want students to, oh, that's awesome. Yep.
Great. Right.
That's really, really amazing. Yep. Man, you guys must just have, and gals must just have like such a long, brilliant list of features for all these product managers at these companies. Yep.
Yeah. And I just love to say, like, I mean, there's roles and opportunities open for you in all these spaces. There's also so much space for you to explore and become entrepreneurs yourself. So I think a great entryway into some of that is through roles, but there's a ton of room for you all ahead. All right, should we go ahead and transition? Let's see.
Let's do it. All right. Okay, so we're moving along here. We are kind of moving into a going to be a little bit more rolling up our sleeves section here about some tools and exercises that can help you make the pivot. And just want to kind of emphasize, you know, the context in which these tools we believe can be used, really designed to kind of think about these three questions, right? What are my options? How do I even start to think about what my options are? What are these roles? What do they really do? And again, how can I start to really position myself in a way that resonates? So keeping these three in mind, the reason why these three questions are really, really important, if we go to the next slide, is that many of you might be somewhere in this journey today. You can let us know by just pinging the chat if this is how you feel, or some of you maybe haven't even embarked on it yet. But this is really, when people come to us, this is how they feel. They feel confused. The ghosting. That's right.
That's the worst. You thought it was just in dating, but it's in looking for a job too.
Applying like a maniac, applying without a lot of direction, which happens a lot.
Yeah. We see people apply for 5 to 10 different roles and jobs.
Yes.
And then, you know, just exhausted. So there's a way better way of doing it. It's about being strategic about what you're looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a lot of people applying and saying, why am I not hearing back? Or like, what, I need to upskill, but what do I need to upskill around? Like, how should I prioritize my time? And you all know this. I love this. Oh my God. I think we like hit a funny bone here with this journey. It seems like it's resonated because it's true. And I think one of the things that we really, really focus on is, you guys know this well, it's a project, right? It's a program. That's how you have to approach this process, is treating it like you do with the great work of students or other stakeholders in education. which is strategically and with structure. So we're going to talk a little bit today about kind of how we do that. And so this is a glimpse into our process, and just wanted to throw that disclaimer out there because with such a big group, we wanted to make sure it was helpful for everybody, but we definitely do these in more kind of intimate settings so that you get more personalized feedback, but still think this is going to be really valuable for everybody today. So here's the glimpse into our process, and it's going to be 3 steps here that really focus on starting to answer some of those questions, right? Number 1 is understanding what skills you want to major in versus minor in, right? So what do you want to double down on almost, right, is a way to think about this pivot so that you don't get into that squiggly, right? Number 2 then is thinking about, if I know what I want to focus on and what problems I want to solve, that gives me a way to start thinking about roles that ladder up to that and skills that tie to that. And then the third thing, which we've touched on, is positioning yourself and the experience. So how do we do that? So we have, we're going to give you a tool today. We're going to first going to step you through kind of how to use this. And again, just a reminder, everybody, you're going to get a copy of this. You'll get to go through this at your own time as well. But we really wanted to make sure that everybody was clear on how to use this today. So I think Christina's going to share it with all of you, and then we'll just dive in. We'll do a quick demo, and then we're going to actually step through an example through the lens of a teacher, real life person that's going to help us bring this to life here.
That sounds great. I threw it in the chat. We might get there's a lot of people chatting, but I'll just go ahead and throw it in there again. But basically, you're gonna we've put this tool together, so we're gonna walk through it on our current site. If you go ahead and go to Thezeitco, there's actually a For Educators link in the nav bar that we're going to walk you through. And we'll share this link afterwards just to make sure everybody has it. Great. I'm going to switch my screen now. Great.
I love all the great advice everybody's giving to each other. Thoughtful.
Great. Just for some reference, just the website is Thezeitco again. And if you land here, you'll go ahead and just go click For Educators, and this is where we're going to get started.
Cool. I know we got a couple questions. Yeah. Yeah, we got some good questions too around, I think culturally, someone, just touched on some companies, EdTech companies, just don't even really appreciate the importance and the value that educators can bring. So we can talk about ways to address that. Okay, cool. So let's dive in here. So we're going to, if you get to this site and you have it in front of you, you can follow us along, or you can just watch us and step through it right now. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we talked a little bit about identifying that major, right? Or as we like to call it, superpower skills. We all got them. And this is really important, right? This is about having that focus around what you want to double down on next in this move, right? So here are some example superpower skills that our data has really surfaced. And again, this is not 100% exhaustive, but this really covers a gamut of some many roles in tech. And if you just go to the top here, so we have 8 different superpowers here. And we'll let you take a read on your own, but thinking about, are you a visionary? Are you strategic? Do you love the business? Do you get motivated by that? Are you really into curriculum? it's such a huge part of education, and there's so many aspects to it that you really could be able to focus on in terms of shaping or delivering an experience. Do you just love product, right? I think some of you actually touched on this. Do you automatically see opportunities for features and enhancements and ways to make the experience better? And that's what you really want to affect. So there are, this is a way that we want you all to start thinking about how and why you want to make the pivot, right? What is motivating you? And let's see, we got a lot of, I'm curious to see how the answers are trickling in. Interesting. We got a lot of relationship extraordinaire. Obviously, can see you being wonderful at that.
Got some master planners and multitaskers.
Yep, definitely have that in the spades.
Product thinkers.
Yep, really interesting. Really interesting. Yeah, this is great. Curriculum architect. Yep. Pattern finder. It looks like everybody's starting to already identify. Good. Well, I'm glad these, we're glad these really resonate with you. So this being the first step, right, to kind of think about, and you obviously spent some time with this, but if relationship is extraordinaire, let's take that one, because we got a lot of interest and excitement around that. So what does that mean, right? So this tool, if you click on it, gives you a little bit of description around, again, what it means, those skills are, but your ability to manage these really complex relationships. You like being a liaison, I like facilitating people across different teams, all right, with the mission of getting people to be successful, as many of you said, right? To learn better, to learn more effectively. So if that is the entry point, right, there's a lot of roles that really harp on relationship management skills, which many of you have in spades. And these are, and in our, with our analysis, these are some of the roles that really index on them, right? So giving you, again, thinking about that first question, right? You care about, what are my options? Where can I go? Right? There are many options, and this is a way to start thinking about it. This is the way to start thinking about different avenues for you to explore and why. So for example, here we have chief of staff, right? This is a role that's actually growing in ed tech. And it comes in so many different shapes. So usually it's partnered with an executive. I mean, everyone I know is familiar with the chief of staff role, but we're seeing it now for chief of staff for design, chief of staff for user experience, chief of staff for product, chief of staff for CEO. So chief of staff for curriculum. That really is focusing on kind of like building those relationships at an executive level. Customer success, which it sounds like some people are familiar with here, right? If you have that deep love for product and making people successful in it, it's a role that really leverages those relationship management skills in spades. So 4 or 5 roles that really index on it high here. And then what's the next step, right? So now you're trying to better understand what this role is about. Yeah, let's click on customer success. So let's learn a little bit more about, what does this role do, right? So customer success is a role that if you love building those cross-functional relationships, you like making customers succeed with the products, or in your case, students, right? In many cases, then this role really blends those two. It really blends those relationship management skills with the love for product. And here you see a little bit of an example of, what does this role do? So just bringing it to life a little bit more, so you get a sense of a day in the life. And then highlighting some of those core skills. And then we're super jazzed about this last section here, thinking about all of you in terms of, how is it transferable, right? So if you're a teacher, this is, highlighting your ability to work with all of those crazy stakeholders. I'm a parent. I have my first day of school tomorrow. I'm a normal parent, I promise. They all say that, right? And if you're a project coordinator, here's a way that you can talk about it. If you're an advisor, here's kind of a core theme that ties you to customer success. So what do you see here? This gives you, a detailed view of the role. It highlights what those transferable skills are thematically. And then we've tied it here to some of the archetypes. So in this case, for example, it's certainly part of relationship extraordinaire. But you do also have to really rely on a master negotiator skills or be a convincer when it comes to customer success. So different entry points, right, that could drive you to something like customer success. And we bring that up because, you know, just taking a little bit of a step back for a minute too. Again, with one of the questions that you all had, what are my options? What we really want people to think about is opening up the aperture and understanding their spectrum of options, right? Because truly, anything is yours for the taking, especially with the great confidence we see everybody having here today. But one way to think about it is, Sharon, I love it. She's confident, right? We're right in sync. You dropped that in the chat. But there's a spectrum, right, that you can think about where some of these roles land for you. So one of the tools that we have put forth here is exactly that, is basically organizing these roles on a spectrum of how directly correlated they are to your existing role versus how much of a stretch they might be. So might be a little bit hard to read in this view.
There's a download link too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
great. So let me just quickly step through an example of this here. And so for the purposes of this like amazing and large crew that we had today, we've created these categories: teachers, administrators, professors, advisors, program coordinators, specialists, and there's, you know, we know there's more of these categories. We tried to capture, I think, as much of an exhaustive list that we can here. But the purpose is that you will hopefully see kind of like, you know, what you identify with. And then the idea is just saying, for example, like a teacher, right? If you're, whether it's elementary school or high school, what is really correlated to you? Instructional design and curriculum design, and being, you know, those two you can do in spades. There's no denying it. There's no denying it, right? You have so many transferable skills. Something like UX research, still within reach, right? But it might be a little bit of a stretch because there's some methodologies there, quantitatively, qualitatively, that require maybe a little bit more formal training. But because of the user empathy that you have in spades, we know that UX research is a really great role for teachers. Similarly, you know, we think about let's say you are in charge of study abroad affairs or student affairs as a program coordinator, right? There's so many helpful relationship management skills as it relates to customer success or being an account executive that make those roles directly correlated to you. But there are roles like community management, which are new and actually growing in the role of in the field of tech, and are all about kind of like really building content and connecting individuals together in a meaningful way, that might need a little bit more formal training around the tech software that you use to do that. So this tool, we hope, is something that you all use as a springboard, and can certainly adopt and make better, because we know many of you, might fit into a couple of these categories, and therefore your spectrum is probably going to look a little bit different.
Yeah. And just wanted to call out that like these are just 14 roles, and we actually have the roles as an easy view for you here today. Yep. That we've found, and like we'd love to hear if you think there's more, and like maybe you think that some are closer in reach than others, and maybe you have a better fit. So like this is all as part of the startup mentality here. We'd love to hear your feedback on what resonates and what doesn't, and if you think things are missing. I just got a little note that that link on the career ed pathway was had the wrong restriction, so it's open now if you guys want to download it.
Awesome, cool.
All right,
great, good. Glad that people are getting in there. All right. I know we have some great questions. We have not lost sight of those. Again, really appreciate you all going along for the ride with us here. What we wanted to do was bring this to life a bit more and touch on how you can use this through a real life example, and give you guys a little bit more tactical help to touch on that third bullet of how do you talk about this? How do you translate your experience? So we are going to do that today through the lens of Ella Jamone, who is an extraordinary second grade teacher from my homeland, as a matter of fact.
Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio. I know we have some Ohio people here. She's a second grade teacher at a private school, has a lot of really cool passions and interests on the side, like animation. Oh, Buckeyes. I actually went to Michigan, so that's where it stops. But yeah, I will say go Cavs and Guardians. Thanks, Jason. Awesome. Okay, so, oh, that's awesome. I love it. I'm from Ohio and NYC. That's my story as well. All right, enough from me. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit to Ella, and talk about how she started and stepped to this exact process, right? So Ella just landed on the site that we just shared with you, and again, this is an example from our program and how we do this in a bit more of an intimate setting, and really said, like many of you, relationship extraordinary, right? This is what I want to double down on as it relates to being a teacher. Like, I just love I like making people succeed, and I love all of like the relationship management components of that, working with the specialists, working with other teachers. In Ella's case, she became head second teacher. And I want to leverage these skills because these are what people say I'm really, really good at, making me an effective teacher. So she identified with that as kind of her pivot archetype. And then as she looked to explore many of the roles, she got most excited about customer success manager, and that was for a few reasons. Number one, like many of you, being exposed to all sorts of new software over these last few years, she realized that she had a knack for digital, tools, and actually became kind of curious about how to really affect them and shape them. So she is looking to apply for a role at Teachable. And some of you may or may not be familiar with Teachable. Teachable is a software tool that it enables people to create their own course material. So what we have here, and sorry, I should have level set this. This is a worksheet which you all have access to. And it's going to give you the step-by-step tools to be able to articulate and translate your experience. So for this example we have here, if you look down and see on the left column, right, these are 3 to 4 core skills from the role that you relate to, right? So the job description from Teachable, right? This was the exercise that Ella went through. She looked through that. Which I'm sure many of you, and I'd love to hear this, do this when you read a job description. You say, I can do this. I've done this before. I'm confident I have these skills. And copy and pasted. These are actual bullets in the job description. The customer success manager at Teachable, right? Act as a creator. Experiment with new tactics, right? If you scroll down just a little bit there, show you a couple more. Experiment with new tactics and strategies to improve the team's process and outcomes, and iterate and adapt as we grow. Liaise with different business executives. And the first step here is, as you've seen, we've highlighted, right? A lot of these words or skills in purple and underline them. And the reason for that is because the vernacular is really, really important here, right? So this was something that many of you already touched on. How do you translate it? this is almost like cheating, right? I shouldn't say this to educators, but this is the way it's spoken about in the context in the field of ed tech, right? So it's using words like product needs, experimentation, tactics, strategies, advocate. These are not new words to you all, right? It's just ways that they describe it. So the step one here is to look at these job descriptions and copy and paste the ones that are really, these bullets that are really relevant to you, that feel like yours. Yes, the language glossary, and highlight them, right? And then step two is start to think about your experience, right? What about your experience, when you reflect on it, is making you think that this specific bullet is actually something that you have done again. And this is where we can often get tripped up, even if we're great at language, right? We start to worry about how we're going to construct this in a resume, or how we're going to say this in an interview. For the purpose of this worksheet, it's really just to get those thoughts out, right? So in this column here, this brainstorm, your transferable experience, we want you to just think about it. So let's go through an example. I'm talking a lot now. All right, here we go. So act as a creator, advocate, and expert, offering deep and firsthand understanding of their experience and product needs, right? So Ella said, I've done this. This is all about user empathy. Many of you have talked about this. Having user empathy is something you have in spades. I said, give us an example of how you've done that. Well, in second grade, I've taught over 100 students, right? I observe their personalities, their body language, their interactions. Like I'm a researcher. I can really, understand these patterns, and I use it to identify and really deliver lessons and activities in a way that I know it's going to resonate with these students, right? At an individual level. That is exactly what a customer success manager needs to do when dealing with clients. So if you can scroll down a little bit for me, please, Christina. Oh, wait, sorry, actually scroll up a little bit more. Sorry. Okay, so just want to give one more example, and then we'll talk about how we can kind of translate this. So the second bullet here, right? At Teachable, this is what they're requiring. Experiment with new tactics and strategies to improve the team's process. So Ella said, yep, do this every week, actually. Lesson plan, activity, experimentation. So what does that look like, right? So we review lesson plan materials with administrators, with other teachers, with specialists sometimes, and we adjust and iterate based on how the students are reacting and what's working and what's not. And gave a specific example about how she actually did this through a reading program. So wanted to share those couple examples. And you can see, again, I know it sounds like many of you are getting into this worksheet right now. We filled it out so that you have a filled out version and for inspiration. But what we want to do now is, once you have brainstormed, how do you translate it? So we hope that this is our Mad Lib, or trusty formula that you can use to help with that translation, okay? And you can think about this in a couple contexts. So it can certainly be for a resume, but this could also be something you use to drop and introduce yourself in an email. This could be something that you use to talk about your experience in an interview. So what is the recipe? If it's actually quite simple. So it's thinking about, what is the active verb? What has been your contributions and the skills you've used? And what was the result of that? So this is the most clear way to tell your story. There's an example here. You can see this was actually not for a teacher, but something that you can refer to see really what good looks like. But let's run it through Ella's example, right? Ella's example, again, Christina, if you don't mind humoring me to scroll up, sure. I just want to remind everybody. This is what we're focused on here, right? So Christina is, I'm sorry, not Christina. Christina is too, but Ella is trying to think about this bullet, this requirement. act as a creator, advocate, and expert, offering deep and firsthand understanding of their experience and product needs, right? How does she talk about her having user empathy in a way? So let's show it. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, here we go. So this is how we filled out the Mad Lib here with Ella. Nurtured relationships with the 100+ students by actively listening and observing their behavioral patterns to understand their individual learning styles, and developed dozens of activities and lesson plans that tailored to their needs, right? So first of all, you see how it's nuanced, right? It's niche. It's so clear if I'm reading it, like what you have done and how it really directly translates to what a customer success manager needs to do, right? The relationship piece. That's a piece of the language that's important. Understand needs, right? These are two words that directly came from the job description bullet. That's what we mean by really kind of hitting on and reflecting on what your skills are and how you can translate them. Should we go through one more example? We'll do one more example. Okay. All right. Cool. All right, Christina, do you mind scrolling up one more time? See, we're collaborative too over here at Site. Okay, so let's bring the second one to life. I love the second one from Ella's story. So experiment with new tactics and strategies to improve the team's process and outcomes, and iterate and adapt as we grow. I mean, this is tech in a nutshell, right? But this is also what it's like to be an educator in a nutshell. So this specific example was the reading comp, and let's talk about how we brought that to life, right? So led the second grade reading comprehension strategy for 120 students by advocating for a trial of an experimental digital reading exercise that increased overall second graders recall by 11% year over year, right? That's, if I'm a hiring manager, this is so brilliant, because what was Ella's role? She led it. The specificity on how many students, what they actually did, and the impact, right? And again, you see some of the words are highlighted here around being an advocate, strategy, being experimental, really hitting on the nodes that we know they're looking for for a customer success manager.
Yeah, it's all about translation. A lot of what we found is that people will tell us, oh, I've done this, this, and this. And it's just about reworking the language to make it feel powerful, effective, and efficient, so that, right, it's cues that you're in the know, you understand what their problems and issues are, you understand how to speak to them. So the translation is a huge piece to this. And the more and more we talk with some of our pivoters, the more we're able to really craft these kind of bullets. And we use them in a variety of different ways, right? This can be on a resume. This can be in an intro email. Yep. This can be in a conversation that you work in. There are little tiny like tidbits that are super effective, that are great signals to whomever you're talking to that you can do the job, you know what they're trying to accomplish, and you're ready for this. You're ready for the opportunity.
Awesome. Great. Okay, well, I know we zoomed in pretty detailed here but we promised you all that we were going to give you some tactical tips and tools. So we didn't want to move into a Q&A without doing exactly that. So I know we have some great questions that are in the queue, and let's jump right into them. Before we start, I know there's a bunch of questions too about, so you guys are going to get the website, you're going to get access to basically everything that you see here, and the recording tomorrow too, if you haven't got enough of my voice tonight to step through it. But yeah, so let's we'd love to kind of cover a couple of questions, and then we can talk a little bit more about ways that you can use these tools, and for anyone that is interested in more help, how our programs could potentially help as well. All right, here we go.
Feel free, if anyone wants to raise their hand with a question, we're happy to try to figure out, we will figure out how to get you voice up and running for everyone to hear your local voice. Here we go. Stella, how about we start with you?
Let's do it.
Hi, Stella.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for doing this. This is phenomenal. My thoughts, my questions regarding like salary, how do you go about, as teachers, we never had to do that. How do you go about negotiating salary, benefits? And then can we ask companies like, how did you get to the metrics of providing me with that offer without sounding, rude or a jerk? Thanks.
Yeah, great question. Great question. Well, you probably already know this, Stella, but there was a law that was passed that now companies can ask you what your salary is, right? So the most important thing is to do the research, which is really just desk research, and asking folks that you maybe know in the company or in the category what a good baseline salary is. I think a rule of thumb, honestly, is generally I think most people want to at least think about 20 to 30% increase from what they're making. But I think the bottom line is you want to come in at a place where making the assumption that what you ask for, most times companies are going to come back with something that's like 10 to 15% less. So leveraging those benchmarks, I would say, and like absolutely things like Glassdoor or asking around LinkedIn are great to basically set a target, knowing that it might be a haircut of about 10% or 15%, but also is going to be getting you to where you want to go.
Yeah, and also knowing that like you're expected to negotiate, right? So like it's you throw out a number, they throw out a number, and you counter, right? So it's not just taking the first offer out in front of you. There's a few different tactics to kind of go about this, and we can cover that maybe at another time, but those are some key things to look at. Glassdoor is a great resource for this.
Absolutely. Yep. And last piece to that, I would just say, don't be afraid to ask them, how they arrived at that. Where are you indexing my peers against that? What does a roadmap look like for me in the next 6 months? Questions like that, fair game. Get them out there earlier on.
Awesome. All right, next person we have is Hannah.
Hi
Hannah,
there.
you there?
Yes, hi. Sorry. I have 9 years of professional educational experience, but I'm right now working on finishing my bachelor's, and I am concurrently working on a UX UI bootcamp, but I feel as though I'm getting denied from both internship positions and entry-level positions because I'm somewhere in between, and it's creating kind of like a cycle for me of volunteering, which is great. And I love volunteering, but I also need to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I guess, what is your advice for somebody who hasn't graduated yet, but has like all of this experience?
Well, first of all, I would say kudos to you that you're doing everything. You're doing everything that you should be doing. And I think that counts for something at the right places. My recommendation is, I think the best way maybe is to explore and employ a few different strategies and approaches. Like freelance work is booming, right? It is now overtaken full-time work. So, and I say that also in the sense, I mean, Christina is a real expert on this one, but you also get paid very well in freelance work. So that could be an opportunity to either explore wholeheartedly, or to, you know, if you have the capacity and the bandwidth, is something to think about, you know, doing from like a side standpoint to further build out those skills, build out your story, build out your experience, and eventually pivot into a role full-time. Those are some initial thoughts.
Yeah, I would echo that. I
Yeah,
think,
thank you.
especially for people who are kind of in that in-between space between interning and upskilling, I think that freelance is huge. And a lot of, not just, in addition to freelance, it's understanding how to pitch your portfolio, just how you learn to pitch yourself and talking to recruiters or companies. It's learning what to talk to in your portfolio to help resonate and connect and demonstrate your abilities. Great.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right.
Awesome. All right, we got a lot of great questions. I'm just gonna, and two things that we'll just note, we will address all these questions, these great questions that we aren't able to cover, if we're not able to cover them, over email in our follow-up. Okay, so I might just take it from the top here. Teresa had a great question around LinkedIn headlines. So yes, we actually do a deep dive in this too in our programs. I think I'd actually use, hopefully, you know, the tool tonight is a great, like, thinking about the archetype, thinking about those core skills, thinking about when you look at bullets from resumes, leverage the combination of those things for, as you know, LinkedIn allows you to do like a headline or a statement underneath your name. It's a great way to kind of like hit on the high notes. Also like to think about it. We have a framework at Zeit very similar to We Love Mad Libs, one for personal summary statement. And it's like a very clear recipe around like who you are, your years of experience, really focusing on that core transferable skill. Using that as a statement is perfect for LinkedIn. Cool. All right. Let me see here. I'm sorry, folks. The question is about like, how do you detect companies, EdTech companies that are open to pivoters? I think number one is like, you know, if you have friends that have made the move, that's the clearest sign. The other is kind of looking at the composition and backgrounds of the leaders within the organization, seeing if they have a pedagogy, education. That's also another way to tell. And I think it's a great question to ask, right? Is like, you know, what is your ethos as it relates to being like a tech board versus an educational company? It's a great way to kind of suss that one out. Feel free to, Christina, if you want to jump into with some of these, happy to.
Sure.
All right, we'll take a couple more in here. Absolutely. When you say 3 to 5 years of experience, a lot of questions about the experience. Can you, is it relevant when you see that in a job posting? Yes, yes, yes. Never get turned away by that minimum years of experience. You should always get credit for the experience you have, and it's absolutely transferable. So don't shy away from that. James had a great question around project manager. Yeah, if you look at the tool, you'll actually see some good career paths for, you know, I think project management, customer success is a great one. Operations is a common one as well. Product management can also be something where we see a lot of pivoting or traversing from project management. So really, really transferable skill that you're stepping in from.
And just another question here around, do I need additional certificates for project management? We've seen people successfully pivot without having certification. Project management, I think, is one where it's not completely necessary. I think like there's like, we talk about different companies. So if you're at like a large established tech company, they might want certification, but a great opportunity to look is also whether it's startups or smaller to mid-sized companies. They can oftentimes be a little bit more like lax about what the requirements are. And then additionally, I would say like when a job listing has like requirements of X, Y, and Z product certification, that is always kind of up for debate. I think that like if you're looking at a job listing and think you have to nail 100% of everything that's on there, like think again, right? So it's really about understanding what's transferable, being able to get a feeling of what they're actually looking for, and be able to speak to the responsibilities and skills. So don't see that as like a huge barrier.
Awesome. Cool. All right. I'm going to focus on some kind of like global questions here. And again, we'll cover all of these. This is a good one about, upskilling in general. What is important, right? What is important to consider? So it's just kind of a build on what Christina was talking about here. I think, most good employers recognize that 80% of things are learned on the job. One thing that I definitely want everybody here to not be scared of are like tech software systems. So when you see things like Salesforce or learning management systems, those are all systems that are super easy to ramp up on. And I think one way to address that is if there's a Salesforce is a good example. You see it a lot with customer success, or Monday.com for project management, Jira project management. Just read an article on it. With Monday.com, sign up, make an account. Like if you can get some exposure and experience and speak to that, I think that's being able to speak that language, talk about what you don't know, the context in which you use it. These are important things to be able to do. Other kind of like real hard upskilling, if you're going to pivot into engineering, clearly you're going to need to learn how to code, right? Design roles, sure. I think that is certainly something that you have to develop some more formal, sensibilities in. So think about it that way in terms of, and again, there are lots of tools and free tools out there that you can use to do that. Yeah. Awesome.
Ambika, why don't we go ahead and just transition to tell everybody a little bit more about our services and what we do, and then we'll open it right back up for more questions.
Cool.
Does that sound good?
That sounds good to me. Okay, great. And I love that everybody's getting some good recommendations there too. So, one, actually, Christina, if you don't mind going up to that, the journey slide today, because I think that was right. So this is what Christina and I went through. Obviously, resonates with a lot of you. This is the journey that exists today in the world. And we are hell-bent on fixing it. So a little bit of kind of how we approach things are, given what goes on with this journey is, there's no structure, there's no protocols, there's no kind of like,
there's
exactly.
no support. There's, we hear all day long, like, I feel so isolated, alone. Like I tell my friends I'm applying, but like getting rejected, 20 over the, month, it's just exhausting. Like, and I feel completely alone. Like,
right. And this is, there's a shared experience here that we have noticed in the cohorts that we've developed for people that are, maybe both trying to break into EdTech, or someone who is breaking into EdTech and FinTech, right? Because it's the same structure, right? Same process everywhere. So that emotional support and having peers is critical. So the way we just wanted to, kind of use this as like if this is the current state today, right? And out in the world, we approach it in a very different way at Zeit, which is, this is what we are bringing to the journey, right? We are thinking about creating those milestones, creating that rigor, creating that emotional that functional and that kind of expert support. And yeah, curious to see where you all are in your journey here in terms of, yep, are you just getting started? This is common, right? Like, I'm sure many of you, like, and kudos for showing up here tonight, because showing up here is part of doing the work.
Right.
And as we all know, it takes 6 to 9 months to get a job, right? It can certainly take, shorter than that, but getting started, doing it the right way is important. So it looks like most people here are kind of converged around a role. That's interesting.
I think it's really important just to highlight, like, there's kind of like 2 big phases we see, right? This first part, yellow, is really just around what we try to focus on a little bit today, which is like, hey, like, why am I making this pivot? A lot of people say, oh, I know what I don't like. I know what's making me unhappy. I think there's a lot of self-reflection and exercises we do to really hone in on why you're pivoting, what you want to double down on as your superpower, and focus in on your skills, because that is the impetus and the thread in which this whole thing is weaved, right? So getting really clear about that and getting momentum, that develops a lot of momentum, identifying what pathways are, and focusing down on the type of roles that you're going to be looking for. The second part is really around getting really strategic about your job search, how you're positioning yourself to different companies, what type of companies you're looking for, how to speak to them, and practicing all these skills, right? It's practicing the interviewing, it's practicing talking about yourself, it's practicing selling yourself. So those are the 2 big kind of aspects that we focus in on, because like we said, there isn't any clear roadmap, there's no milestones, and most importantly, there's no guidance and there's no support of peers or coaches or anything like that you're doing it with, right? And we all know that support systems are huge.
Right. Yeah, and look, so much of this process is about us as individuals, and going through that alone can be really dejecting. We know that because we've done it multiple times and we've had to pick ourselves off the floor. So we said we need to institute a better process here. So great to see where everybody fares. So there's 2 programs that we offer. Hopefully, so first of all, we hope that our tools have helped. There are 2 programs that we offer if anyone here feels that you need more help. And one is so they're both 6-week programs. They are built for busy professionals, both in personal and professional lives. So what we do is we say to everybody, budget 2 to 3 hours of time per week. 2 of those hours are whenever you need to slot them in your week and can. And then 1 hour is when we come together as a group, as a peer cohort in an evening to really reflect, internalize, talk about the exercises that we've been doing on our own and get the help that we need. I think Christina touched on some of these things, but really kind of like, what's our secret sauce, right? So you've seen some of it today in terms of the tools and how we use skill analyses and algorithms. But then, we're really big on community and people. So working with us, we have a set of experts and pivot coaches that provide guidance. We construct these peer cohorts that you move through the journey with. So it's very much these different spheres that you see where you have us, you have your immediate cohort, and then you have an extended community of people that have already made the pivot. So I saw, Beth asked a question about a 40-year-old who's made a career transition. And we just had one right now, someone who pivoted into product operations.
Actually, she was in her 50s.
Oh, even better, better.
Her question to us was like, hey, I'm in like the end of my career, like, and I want to do something new. Like what type of company do I go for? How do I position myself? How do I overcome ageism? How do I translate? What's the language I use?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So great example. And so combination of coaching, your community cohort, a bunch of exercises, and access to mentors, right? People that have made these pivots before. We do this in the form of talks. We do this in the form of connecting people to relevant individuals at many of the places that we outlined today in the landscape. So that's a little bit about kind of like the nuts and bolts of the program. And then we offer two of them. One is a discovery program, which is really focused on the people that said, I'm just getting started, or I'm trying to identify the specific role. That's the goal, right? The point of arrival is to give you that clarity. So we just had someone, for example, who wanted to move from teaching to UX research at a large company, right? So it was through a series of exercises. We had another person who was at not-for-profit, an analyst role, wanted to move into a chief of staff role in technology. So going and it's some additional clarity and details around that as well. So discovery program is designed for helping you identify that. And then for those of you that have already identified a role and really just need help converging and positioning yourself, going into a lot of the same detail that we did tonight, that's what our pivot program is designed to do, to really give you that roadmap and land that position, which we've helped many people do. So anyways, we just wanted to share a little bit more about that. And we have limited spots for our program that kicks off next week. And I think in the same link that Christina sent, if anybody is interested, you can certainly enroll. If there's some spots left, we'd love to have you. And if you have any questions, you can always email us about them as well. But like I said, we like to keep them very kind of bespoke and personalized and intimate. So that's why we do have limited number of spots.
Great.
Cool. All right. So I think we got any additional, we've got a couple of questions I know here. Let's see, we've got some hands raised.
Yeah, Sharon, I'm gonna go ahead and turn your mic on. How do I, here we go. Hi, Sharon, are you there still? All right, I don't think.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, I'm still here. Actually, I just want to say you guys are super knowledgeable. I've been to other similar ed tech things, and it's not exactly as informative as you two. So I just want to say kudos to the both of you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
One of the things I just think is super hard is being an administrator and having all these skills and stuff. I don't really want to play this card, but I still feel like it's a man's world, and like women are kind of seen as a threat. And that's partially like, I feel like it's so hard to break into ed tech because it is that way, and educators are not really appreciated for all the things that they bring. So as an administrator, I was an educator. I'm always an educator. I'm a lifelong learner, and I bring all these skills with me. And I have those in my resume. Like my resume has been vetted by many people. And it's still, I've applied to those jobs that you have listed on your board, like a Newsella or a Schoology or all those. And it's like I'm almost sending a resume to like the dumpster in the sky, because it's not, I don't even get the interview. I don't even get acknowledged. Like, thank you, we received it. Like, it's just so weird to me how like in education, we're all about kids, but it's probably one of the most rudest professions I've ever come across. Because when my brother, who is like a business person or a bank manager, like they at least acknowledge you, thank you for applying, but we're you know, we filled our quota. Whereas in ed tech, it's almost like there's so much that they don't even acknowledge your existence, which I feel is such an insulting thing.
Thanks so much for sharing that, like, and being really vulnerable and just kind of letting it all out. I think that like, you're not alone. First of all, foremost, you're not alone, right? We hear this all the time. I've applied to this many places and I hear nothing, not even acknowledgement or like that I've sent something through. I've tried messaging, I've X, Y, and Z. And I think that like, that is a huge issue, like on for companies that they're getting all these applications, they have trouble managing it, terrible at acknowledging it. But on our end, right, it's really like, how do you break out of just posting a resume on a job board, right? We have a few different strategies on how to go with that. It's about understanding and finding the right connections, and finding kind of like back end ways of like raising your hand and being highlighted to the potential recruiters or managers that are looking for that role. As we know, networks are really how a lot of people are able to kind of break through. And Vika, I know you have some good examples of this. Do you want to share a few?
Yeah,
Can I just jump in for 2 seconds? Like, one of the things is New York City builds. So for example, because obviously I'm from New York, but so in that, it literally lists each company. It's such an amazing website. It lists each ed tech company because those are all up and coming. So you have like Atomic and a Newsella and all those. And for example, they're looking for 36 jobs and 50 jobs. And it's like, you know, I applied a month ago, but it's still the same status. So it's, again, it's just that unknown piece that you're like, what am I doing? Like that I'm not doing something correct almost.
You know, well, I guess two things. And yeah, I just first of all, second of all, like, thank you for being honest and sharing that with us. I think there's no denying that the biases are there. And, you know, on the flip side of it, you can sometimes use these things to your advantage. So like, we have so many stories of like women, right, facing the same problem, not just for ed tech, but facing this problem. And they had to find another woman that was like them to help, you know, ensure that their story was resonating and get them through the door. So sometimes it can be a little bit of trying to find someone like you, is one piece, which brings me to two other points, which is, unfortunately, you know, given the way the systems are set up today, it is a numbers game, right? Like, one thing that we have to tell ourselves and get comfortable with is like, for every 10 roles that I'm applying to, might hear back from one. So, you know, one of our favorite mentors, who was a teacher, as a matter of fact, and pivoted into, is now Google product manager, said, my goal was to apply for 200 roles and get rejected. So now, we're not encouraging everybody to do that, but I'm just saying that, like, that's normal. If you are not hearing back, or not, like, that's also part of, you know, the probability here. So that all being said, just a couple other helpful tips I would say is like, I think things like this, I mean, look at how great everybody here is here about connecting, and we will find a way to connect everybody. I think that like, having a network of people that can facilitate that intro is the best way to do it. So unfortunately, that is one thing I think that will continue to help people like make these interviews a little bit more, make this process a little bit more porous.
I appreciate you guys' feedback. Again, you guys are so knowledgeable, and I think you guys are just, you know, great and spot on. And it's very inspiring that the both of you are women, and it just kind of gives like a glimmer of hope. So
you got it. You have the confidence. We can tell.
Thanks. Everyone, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn and more. We'll find ways of connecting with you. I'm just like, I want to talk more. All right, let's hear from Randy. Randy, you still there?
I am still here. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hello, Randy.
Our younger son is a junior at UM, so we're a go blue in this. Yeah.
Love it.
It's public policy, so he's a smarty pants too. But yeah,
oh, that's terrific.
So my question is I'm probably one of the older folks here. I'm in my early 50s, and I definitely feel that ageism is a thing. I interviewed with curriculum associates in the midsummer time. And it was really clear that the woman, it was a Zoom interview, she was not expecting me. And, you know, like I look pretty, and being in my humble opinion, I look pretty good for my age.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
She wanted someone who was, I think, I'm from Philly. It was covering school districts in North Jersey and the southern part of Manhattan. And I clearly just wasn't who she was looking for. And like, I work in Philly. We use Curriculum Associates products. I know the products inside and out. It would have been a perfect fit, but yeah, I felt like it was that. And then when I speak to some other people as I'm networking, at the small college I went to, the person there had said to me to think about taking a course on Udemy, on Salesforce.
Yep.
So I don't have time. Like I have 31 kindergartners, you guys,
Yeah.
it's really hard. So I would probably do your course and do your pivot courses. So I know that Tuesday nights, this is where I have to be. And I would with you guys like doing that, because otherwise it won't happen for me.
Yeah, it's
Well,
good
we
to
can
make
make
that
it-
commitment.
yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
like, especially when we, my cousin is a teacher, and her back to school night was tonight. And she's like, you know, I wish I could join, but like, she's like, I wish I had this X number of months ago in lieu of whatever. I have my whole school year ahead of me. Get started early.
Yep.
This is a long process. Be strategic about it. Don't burn yourself out and say, I need to get this done in 3 months or get a job in 2 months. It's about being strategic, setting a beat for yourself and being able to balance it with other things, right?
Mm-hmm. So what
Absolutely.
are your thoughts on Udemy and taking a course, so I sound somewhat knowledgeable when I'm talking to prospective, you know, HR people or hiring managers?
Yep. Yeah. So it's a great question. I think the place to start, because, you know, here's the good thing. There's a sea of resources. It's also overwhelming. The place to start, in my opinion, is getting specific about the use cases, the application of Salesforce, right?
Yes.
And one way to do that is, I mean, maybe even just like talking to 1 or 2 people, if you can get access to, that are doing the thing that you're looking to do, reading some more job descriptions, trying to get some clarity, reading up on it on the internet. And that way you can not sign up for a 6-week Udemy course where like you're putting in 10 hours a week or whatever it is these days. You can really focus it on specific use cases, and that you might not even need to do a Udemy course for, by the way. Like you could just be able to connect with somebody and get a tutorial around making this up. But like if I'm in HR tech or I'm in customer success and I use Salesforce, it's for these 3 reasons. That right there, it gives you the information in an efficient way to be able to speak about it. Probably in a lot more informed way too, if you know, when you get those interviews, I should say. So that's the way to go about it, is focus on use cases, getting really specific about, you know, Salesforce for CRM, capture, organization, doing follow-up calls. I'm making that up, but like that's an example of a use case.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thanks again for this wonderful product you guys put together.
Of course.
Awesome. Thank you. Go Blue. Here we go. Big Saturday.
All right. Next up is Teresa. Teresa, you still there?
My question was already answered that I put in the Q&A.
Oh,
So,
great.
yeah, it was just the one about the headline on if I'm interested in data analytics and, you know, implementation, you know, EdTech or non-EdTech, how do you know, address that when it comes to the headline so that it is generic enough, but still draws the attention. So you guys kind of touched on that.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, good to hear your voice still, Teresa. Thanks for being engaged. Awesome. I know we're at time here.
We
like
are.
I said, we are going to make a copy of all these questions, and we'd love to kind of follow up with you all in our email tomorrow to answer and cover some of the ones that we couldn't tonight. But want to be respectful of everybody's time. And look, I'll just say in closing, and obviously Christina, please step up in here as well. First and foremost, just want to say thank you to all of you for coming here tonight, for doing what you do, we're really, really touched that so many people were excited about this topic and eager to break into EdTech. Just absolutely love the energy that you guys brought. And to the extent that we can help anybody, we would love to do so. So we'll share our email. You have our website. Our programs open up next week, and we've given a discount to educators because you're educators. So it's normally $500, and it's $450 for all of you. But Christina, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say like a heartfelt thanks. That I'm so happy that, you know, we can bring together this community. Like, most exciting thing for me is like to see everybody in the chat, like, you know, support each other. And this is really what it's about, right? It's about building a community of support and a process to kind of get you guys through this. And we're just really excited about helping people pivot. So feel free to connect with us in any way possible. I just dropped in Zeit's LinkedIn and connect with us personally. Yeah, we'd love to see you all again another time in another venue.
Amazing. And last housekeeping thing, we will follow up with you all tomorrow with the recording and access to all this great information. Just drop my email in the chat as well. Thank you all so much. Great to see you guys connecting, and we'll be in touch soon. Oops, I dropped my wrong email in there.
Thanks. I think I dropped mine in too, though. So find us on LinkedIn. That's probably easier.
Find us on LinkedIn.